Thank you to our sponsors. Make sure to buy the book based on true events, Watsonville Riots, a novel by Abraham Gabriel Pagtama, now available at bit.ly/Watsonville Riots book, or search the book title in Amazon.com. Hello, welcome everyone. Gabriel Pagtama here for the Abe Gabe channel. Have you ever heard about the Watsonville Riots before? The Watsonville Riots was a period of racial violence that took place in Watsonville, California, USA, from January 19 to January 23rd in the year 1930. Involving violent assaults on Filipino American farm workers by local residents opposed to immigration. The riots highlighted the racial and socio-economic tensions in California's agricultural communities. Subscribe, watch, and follow along on our adventure as we meet up with our tour guides, Joanne and Annie, on this episode on the Fil-Am History Docuseries about the Watsonville Riots. Thank you for watching.
Gabe Pagtama right here, and we are here in Watsonville, California.
Watsonville!
That's right, and we have a very special guest. I'm honored to introduce you to her. It's Joanne de los Reyes Hilario.
Hi!
And you grew up here in Watsonville,
yes,
right?
Yes, I am the daughter of a mono.
How long have you lived out here in Watsonville?
Since I was 2 years old.
Wow, so 2 years old.
Yes.
And right now we're standing in a very important place, a historical site that was in the history books, Filipino American history. They said that this is the place where the first day of the Watsonville Riots started here in Palm Beach.
Palm Beach.
So tell us, Joanne, tell us about this area of Palm Beach now, before and then now.
So Palm Beach is at the end of Riverside Road, and the Lock Patton brothers rented the property out to a Filipino so that they could have their dances there. They had a hall, and that's where the Filipinos would get together and have their dances, and this is the area where that dance hall was, where several angry men from town came and wanted to drag the Filipinos out and hurt them. Yes.
So from the events that happened during the Watsonville Riots, what do you think, what has turned out to be really great about what has happened as far as what's happening now here in Watsonville?
So that happened in 1930. We are now 92 years out. I can say that we have Filipinos on city council, which I believe 90 years ago they would have never imagined that we would have representation, and that's one of the good things. And the Filipinos that did work in the farms back then, the Manongs and their families, I do not know of one Filipino family, maybe one or two Filipino families that still are in agriculture, but most of them had their children educated and they became doctors and lawyers and moved out of the area and expanded what they did in life. Humble beginnings.
Now we're here at the Palm Beach area. Now it's just, what is it now? It's just a beach area, and we have some high-end luxury homes here.
Beachfront homes we're going to try to get access to if we can. But there are rental properties on both sides, I know, and some residences.
Yeah. So this was the first location of the riots in January 19, 1930, where over 500 men stormed into the Palm Beach dance hall, where the Filipinos were renting the dance hall from the Lock
Patton brothers.
The Lock Patton brothers. And actually the Lock Patton brothers, it's known through a legend that they were protecting the Filipinos from the mob that was going to attack the Filipinos in the dance hall. So we're going to see how it is right now. Take some shots out here, and make sure you guys follow us and tune in, because we're going to show you some other places that were happening during the Watsonville Riots today. What's going on today? We're right here in the Pajaro Dunes, where legend says this was where
The dance hall was.
the dance halls were, where over 500 men stormed into the dance hall, but was protected by
The Lock Patton brothers.
the Lock Patton brothers were protecting the Filipinos. So right here in Palm Beach, they say this is where the first day of the Watsonville Riots happened. And now, to this day, it's known as...
They are oceanfront homes and rental properties.
2 days later, before the mob at the Palm Beach Dance Club on January 20th, 1930, a group of Filipino men met with a group of white men right here at the Pajaro River Bridge to settle a score. A group of Hispanic men then arrived and took sides with the whites. The riots began and continued for 5 days as Filipinos were thrown off this Pajaro River Bridge to start the Watsonville Riots.
My name is Antoinette de Ocampo, and my father was Paul de Ocampo. My uncle was Leon J. Lasso. My aunt was Aunt May Rosser. Without my Aunt May, as a white woman, my uncle and my father would never have been able to be part of this property. Many Filipinos lived in and around these properties that are burned down now and gone, but this was their view of the valley and their piece of rich dirt. And the area where that big truck is, all the way down to where that road is, was all apple orchards. And then this was the back of my uncle's property where he had horses, I think, at one time. And then these were fields of lettuce, and then they were apple orchards all the way to San Juan Road.
So you say these are some of your uncle owned.
My uncle Leon Lasso and my Aunt May Rosser and my father Paul de Ocampo originally farmed this property.
And you say that there are probably a lot of Filipinos that work these
Absolutely. My godfather lived on the corner of the property. When we go to the other angle, I'll show you where it was, but I wanted you to look down on the valley.
Oh.
This property was owned by Emma May Rosser, my uncle Leon J. Lasso, and my father Paul de Ocampo, and many, many Filipinos worked in these fields. It was cauliflower, beets, sugar beets, green beans. There were other houses that had burned down in this area, but this was part of the heart of the valley.
That's Murphy Hill.
Murphy Hill.
We'll go over there.
Yeah, we'll go over there, but from here, in terms of the shot, that whole little plateau was considered Murphy Hill.
And at the very top of that hill, prime real estate, right?
Prime real estate.
Owned by a Filipino.
Wow.
The view from that hill is amazing of the valley.
Okay, this was called the Row Ranch. And there was a main house and some cabins that were around it, and a lot of the Filipinos lived at the Row Ranch. My uncle's house was down here when he got married to May. They bought the house down there. So Juanita Soule, her family, the Fuertes, my uncle, I think the two sons may have lived at that camp at one time, and that would be behind the green fence. And it belonged to a man named Dr. Rowe, hence the Row Ranch. As a little girl, all I thought when I grew up was, you see these rows? I thought, okay, it's the Row Ranch. That's how they grow on rows, because silly me. But then I found out that actually it was a Row Ranch. It was a whole labor camp there. There's little houses behind this big house right there too.
Yeah.
And that was also a lot of little cabins the Filipinos lived in. Yeah. So if you can imagine, from there to here, there's a big community of Filipinos. And if you look back here where the black fence is, oh wait.
Yeah.
Okay. Where that little pump house is, that's a pump house. My uncle's little house was back there. It was like a 2-3 bedroom little house. With barns around it, a huge barbecue pit, pens for the goats and the pigs, and that's where the big slaughtering of the pigs and the goats would go on. And my sister and I, as little kids, could walk into the back of my uncle's house, and there would be buckets of heads of the animals in the back of the house. And then they would tell us, you don't go in the living room, because that's where the window was where you could see everything. But of course we'd be there on the back of the couch opening up the curtains and watching them slaughter the goats and the pigs. And then we could come outside afterwards. So there'd be a lot of Filipinos, and these just amazing barbecues. And yeah, that's one of my favorite memories. This isn't Watsonville. And my heart really has never been in Watsonville, because I didn't grow up in Watsonville, and I met with a lot of prejudice in Watsonville. I grew up in Aromas, which is that way, and I'll take you there. A very small town, not very diverse, so diversity in people has never meant a lot to me. People are people, and I never saw them by the color of their skin or where they were from until I went to Watsonville. And I was bussed in, and Watsonville was really hard at that time. The Mexicans in that town was very cholo, a lot of gangland, and if you came from Aromas, sometimes you weren't greeted very well. But this area where the Filipinos were, I always felt a part of. My father was important, my uncles were important. You just were part of it. And that's what I love about this area. I come from my house every day. I either come out this way or the way I brought you in the other way. And I think of my ancestors working this land, and I think they're still here. Murphy Camp.
Murphy Camp.
Okay, it was a labor camp. It was where a lot of the Filipinos and Mexicans lived. I've been there many, many times since I was a little girl with my father, handing out payroll or looking for workers. Or him giving directions of where workers should go. It is across the river and between here and Riverside Road. Also, my uncles farmed the property between there and Murphy Camp, and across the road. So I'll show you that too. If you look at all this area and you think about the crews of Filipinos and Mexicans that went from farm to farm to farm, different crops, that was networking. That wasn't cell phone, check your damn email. That was a phone call, someone directing you, and you knew where to go, and you were on time. That was it. Yeah.
Well, tell us, where are we at right now?
We're at Murphy's Camp. We're off of, we're between Riverside Road and San Juan Road, and this camp was one of the original labor camps. The place where Fermin Tovar was murdered.
Right.
Tovar, sorry.
Yeah.
Fermin Tovar was murdered. Back in the day, this was all dirt. These camps have been all refurbished. But this is where the Filipino or the Mexican people would come that migrated here and could not afford to live in town or find any other housing. My father was a labor contractor, and oftentimes as a child I came here with him to hand out payroll or find work. He'd line up his work crews. This is the camps where labor came from, Murphy's Camp.
So what did the labor camps do you think they looked like before? Now that's all modern now.
Oh my gosh, this was all dirt roads. They were dirty. If the plumbing worked, they were lucky. You would see clothes hanging on the line. They were not very well kept, which was unfortunate because who knows who owned them at that time. I don't know who owned Murphy's Camp, but it was kind of a rough place to live. It was right here off Murphy's Crossing, not always known as the best place, but the farms were close by, and it was a central location for laborers to work.
And right now it's
live.
very modern. It's very modern and beautiful living right now. But you can just imagine back in the 1930s, the living conditions were horrendous.
Absolutely horrendous. Like I say, there was no inside plumbing. I was born in 1960. I know it was in the 70s that I was here with my father, between the 60s and 70s, and there were outhouses. And no, the living conditions were horrendous. And for the Mexicans and the Filipinos that had to live in these areas, it was hard. It was a hard time. It was not, your camp. They were not camping. They were living at a labor camp.
Sure. And this is a very historical site during the Watsonville Riots. And what had happened, like you said, Fermin Sobera had died after being shot in the heart when he was hiding in a closet with 11 others, trying to avoid the rounds of bullets fired at the bunkhouse here in Murphy Ranch.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you click the thumbs up and subscribe. We hope you learned something from this episode of the Fil-Am History Docuseries on the Watsonville Riots of 1930. Thank you to our sponsors. A very special thanks to make sure to buy the book based on true events, Watsonville Riots, a novel by Abraham Gabriel Pagtama, now available at bit.ly/Watsonville Riots book, or search the book title in Amazon.com.